If you've ever thought of starting a business, the first question that comes into your mind is, how do I even get started? In this episode, I am going to share with you a 5-step model that you can use to start any kind of business and 5 mistakes that beginner entrepreneurs usually make when they are getting started. So stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Weekly, the channel dedicated to upcoming entrepreneurs, where we talk about business, entrepreneurship, and startup life. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you for your support. So the first place to start, if you want to start your own business, is to identify a problem or a pain point. People pay for products or services because it solves a certain problem that they have, which means that the first thing you have to do is to discover a problem or a pain point. And the way you discover a problem or a pain point is by speaking to people, is by your own observation. In fact, sometimes it's by problems that you experience. So when I started my first company, Event Electronics, I started because as an engineering student back in the university, it was difficult to get electronic components to buy because shipping, the only place you could get them was from China, and shipping was so expensive and it took so long that even the cost of shipping was more than the cost of the products. So I started an online store to make it possible for people in Ghana, especially in my university, to be able to get electronic components to buy. Just make an order online and then it is delivered to you. So you have to start from that point where you are discovering what problems people have and what pain points they also have, because like I mentioned, no one is going to buy anything just for the fun of it. It must solve a problem for them. And the mistake I see people making over here, mistake number 1, is that they have ideas in their mind and they try to find a problem to fit the idea that is in their mind. So don't do that. It should be the other way around, because sometimes the idea which is in your mind is not the problem someone has. So you do the work to discover a pain point or a problem and start from there. So that is how you get started. So the second thing to do before you start your business is to research the opportunity. So yes, you have discovered a problem. You have figured out that this is a problem that exists and people are going through this problem, and there might be the possibility of starting a business to provide a solution that solves that problem. The next thing you have to do is to research. Now, you have to make sure that, or you want to make sure that the problem you are trying to solve is big enough and is significant enough for people to want to pay for it, or people care about the problem enough to pay for it. So then you have to do some research. So what you do is you have to speak with the people that are facing the problem to try and understand the scale of the problem, the scope of the problem, how they are currently trying to solve the problem, what kinds of things they are doing to solve the problem, just to understand more what is going on and gain more insights that will determine or that will define what kind of solutions you are able to come up with. So one of the ways you can do that, speak to as many people as you can to get qualitative feedback on the problem. Also, send surveys out. Right now you can use Google Form, just design a survey and send it out to people to fill, just to also get like a quantitative feedback of people that are facing the problem. And that is very, very important. You also want to be able to determine that people are actually able to pay for whatever solution that you come up with before you even start. And the mistake I see people making here is starting without doing any research, which means that they themselves have certain assumptions and certain hypotheses in their head, and they don't do anything to research more, and then they just go and get started. And that's the mistake I see many people make over there. So research is important. Research the opportunity to see if it is significant enough to even be worth working on. So after you have done your research and spoken to potential customers about your idea or the problem you're trying to solve and gotten feedback, the next thing to do is to build a minimum viable product or service. So the minimum viable product is the version of your product with just enough features to satisfy early customers and provide feedback for future improvements. So even though the concept of the minimum viable product, or MVP for short, is more towards the software and hardware products, I think that we can extend it to the provision of services as well. And let me give you an example. So let's say you're running a grocery shop or a food business. Your minimum viable service could be you just selling one type of thing to a few people, and you buy in small quantity and you sell to just one or two people just to see how they respond to it. Let's say that you were starting a software product or a hardware product. Your MVP could be just the basic features of that software or hardware that satisfies the problem you are trying to solve. And the reason why you're trying to do this is to get initial feedback and validate your hypothesis, because you are going to go into it having some assumptions, and those assumptions may be true or false, and you want to validate whether those assumptions are true or false as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. So the mistake I see people make here is that they go in too big and they spend a lot of time and money developing the MVP. Now the danger here is that because you are now starting out and you are now trying to validate your assumptions, it may turn out that what you thought was the problem and what you thought the solution should be may not be so. And if that happens that way, you'd have wasted a lot of time and wasted a lot of money. That is why it is important to develop a minimum viable product or service so that you can validate your assumptions and get early feedback. So if you like the video so far, please hit the like button and subscribe and turn on notifications. So let me go on to the fourth point. The fourth point is to refine. Now at this point, you have developed your MVP, you have offered like a first version of your product or service to the customers or the people that are going to use it, and it's important to get the feedback that they will give you. Someone may tell you maybe the salt was a bit too much in that food when you served at the catering, or someone may tell you, oh, this app, really, this is not how we do things, so maybe if the app was like this, it would have been better. Or, you know, this bag is too expensive, if the price could come down a bit, it would have been better. This is all initial feedback that is so valuable to your progress. And when you get this feedback, the important thing to do is to refine your product or service. So it could be that maybe in the case of the cooking business, you add less salt or you change your recipe. In the case of the fashion business, maybe you source your accessories from other places that are less expensive. In the case of the software, maybe you refine the app or something. So it's important to refine what you are doing after the initial feedback before you release it again to a large number of people. And the mistake I see people doing here, obviously, is not to refine. So they get the feedback, but they don't do anything about the feedback. They just keep going and going and going. And it is very dangerous, because if the people who are closest to you see the problem and then they tell you about the problem, and you don't refine what you are doing, then when you launch your full product or services, obviously the problem that you had in the beginning is going to scale up and you are going to have issues. So people, and the reason why people think or the reason why people don't refine the product or the service is that usually they have this notion that what they think in their mind is what the product should be, and everybody else is wrong. But nothing could be further than the truth. You are not developing your business for yourself. You are not your customer. So if the customer is telling you, I don't like this, so change it, you should listen to them rather than thinking that what is in your mind is what you should do. So refine. So this brings us to the last point, persevere or pivot. Let's say that at this point you have refined the idea or the business or the product or the service that you want to offer. You have built another version, and persevere simply means that now you introduce that new refinement that you have built based on the feedback that you got from building your MVP. You introduce it to a larger subset or a larger set of potential customers. Now, pivot means that it could have turned out that what you did, people didn't like it at all, or you realize that this is not going to be a product. Even though the product or the service is good, people are not going to pay for it, or I am targeting people that don't have the ability to pay for it. And so pivoting means that you take another turn and do something else, because you have realized that this is what you are doing, or what you started with initially is not going to work. So pivot is like a turn in another direction to try something else and go through the process again. And the mistake I see people making here is not pivoting early enough. As an entrepreneurs or as founders, usually we are in love with our ideas. And so when things are not working out, or things seem like they are really not working out, we think that we should go and we should keep going. Maybe your business is losing money, you're not making any money, you're not getting customers. Instead of you to probably do something else, or to just call it quits and close the business, you try to go further. And then in the end, you end up spending a lot more time, a lot more money on something that is not going to work. So it's important to be able to decouple your feelings from the actual reality and know when you should pivot or do something else. So in conclusion, this is a model you can follow to start any product or business at all. First, discover the problem you're trying to solve. Second, research. Third, build an MVP. Fourth, refine. And fifth, persevere or pivot. If you apply this model, you realize that this can work for any business that you want to do. And entrepreneurship is hard and difficult. And the more you can reduce the risk associated with it, the less time and money you are going to waste working on something that might not work. And so if you like this video, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what kind of ideas you have and what businesses you want to start. And I'll jump in the comments with you and give you my feedback and my thoughts on how you should go about it. So until next week, stay safe and stay awesome.